First contact misjudged. The pride of the Syraxian Empire, the dreadnought Imperator, hung in the darkness of space like a predator watching its hunting grounds. Its elongated hull bristled with weapon arrays and sensor nodes, a testament to 5 centuries of military dominance across 3 galactic sectors. On the command deck, Admiral Vex Krell stood with his 4 arms clasped behind his back, his scaled skin reflecting the blue glow of tactical displays surrounding him. Unidentified vessel detected at the edge of the Tharsis boundary, Admiral, announced Sub-Commander Lyran, her slender fingers dancing across holographic controls. Configuration unknown. Not matching any species in our databases. Krell's vertical pupils narrowed. The Tharsis sector was a strategic choke point for the Empire, the gateway to their richest mining colonies. Any intrusion here was treated with the utmost severity. Full sensor sweep, he ordered, his voice a gravelly rumble that demanded instant obedience. I want to know what we're dealing with. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, directing the dreadnought's powerful scanning arrays toward the unknown vessel. Within moments, the ship's silhouette appeared on the main display, sleek, with curved lines unlike the angular designs favored by known spacefaring species. Preliminary analysis suggests a pre-FTL civilization, Admiral, said Chief Science Officer Maris, his upper eye ridge furrowing as he studied the readings. Hull composition appears to be primarily titanium alloys with carbon reinforcement, primitive by our standards. Krell clicked his mandibles in contemplation. The galaxy was vast, and occasionally, young species managed to cobble together ships capable of limited interstellar travel before mastering proper fold space technology. Such encounters typically ended with the species being subjugated or, at minimum, forced into tributary status under the Empire. Life signs, he inquired. Approximately 250 organic signatures, Maris replied. Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere inside. Thermal patterns consistent with mammalian biology. Another warm blood species, Krell muttered with mild disdain. Open a communication channel. Standard first contact protocols. As the communications officer prepared the transmission, something unusual appeared on Maris's console. The scientist's posture stiffened. Admiral, there's an anomaly in the scan results. The ship's power signature is inconsistent. Explain, Krell demanded. The initial energy readings suggested primitive fusion reactors, but there are fluctuations in the electromagnetic field surrounding the vessel. It's as if. Maris hesitated, his scientific mind reluctant to propose something that defied explanation. It's as if our scanners are being selectively blocked. Krell moved closer to examine the readings himself. Impossible. No pre-FTL civilization could possess such technology. The data doesn't lie, Admiral. There are gaps in our sensor returns precisely where key systems should be located. Before Krell could respond, the communications officer interrupted. Admiral, they're responding to our hail. The main display shifted to show the interior of the unknown vessel's command center. It was surprisingly clean and minimalist compared to the cluttered, hierarchical design of Syraxian ships. At its center stood a bipedal creature with smooth skin and peculiar fur concentrated on the top of its head. Female, judging by the secondary sexual characteristics visible through its fitted uniform. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth vessel Thunderchild. The creature spoke, its voice translated through the ship's linguistic system. We are on a peaceful exploratory mission and did not realize we had crossed into claimed territory. We apologize for the intrusion. Krell studied the human captain carefully. Her posture conveyed confidence, but not aggression, a disciplined military bearing that he recognized across species boundaries. I am Admiral Vex Krell of the Syraxian Imperial Fleet. You have entered sovereign Syraxian space. Identify your species and the location of your homeworld. Captain Rice smiled slightly, a gesture Krell couldn't fully interpret. We are humans from the planet Earth, located approximately 80 light-years from this position. We're relatively new to interstellar travel and are eager to establish peaceful relations with other civilizations. 80 light-years with such primitive technology. The claim seemed dubious to Krell, but not impossible if they had developed high-efficiency fusion drives. "Your ship will be boarded and inspected per Imperial security protocols," Krell stated, not making a request. "Power down your engines and prepare to receive our boarding party." The human's expression changed subtly. "Admiral, while we understand your security concerns, our protocols do not allow for unannounced boarding of our vessels. Perhaps we could establish diplomatic relations first and—" "This is not a negotiation," Krell interrupted. "The Cyrexian Empire has ruled this sector for 5 centuries. You will comply or be considered hostile." A flicker of something, perhaps resignation, perhaps calculation, crossed the human's face. "I understand. Please allow us a few moments to prepare our airlock and inform our crew." Krell gave a curt nod, and the transmission ended. He turned to his executive officer. "Prepare a boarding team. Full combat gear." "Admiral," Maris interjected, still studying his console with increasing confusion. "The anomalies in our scans are increasing. There's something very strange about this vessel." "Elaborate," Krell demanded. "Their power signature just changed. It was minimal during our communication, but now it's pulsing in a pattern I've never seen before. And there are void spaces in our scans that don't make sense for a ship of that size." Across the command deck, another officer called out urgently, "Admiral, we're detecting energy buildup within the human vessel." "Weapons?" Krell demanded, his combat instincts surging. "Unknown, sir. It doesn't match any weapons profile in our database, but the energy density is concerning." Sub-Commander Zivex, commanding the weapons array, shifted nervously. "Admiral, perhaps a demonstration of our firepower would ensure their compliance." A warning shot across their bow. "Hold fire," Krell ordered sharply. "I won't initiate hostilities against an unknown species without—" A bright flash of energy erupted from one of the smaller escort vessels flanking the Imperator. The rogue shot, clearly intended as a warning, streaked toward the human ship. "Who authorized that?" Krell roared, but his anger quickly turned to confusion as he watched the energy beam approach the Thunderchild. Just before impact, a shimmering field appeared around the human vessel. The Cyrexian energy weapon didn't explode against it or ricochet away. Instead, the beam seemed to be absorbed, its energy dissipating across the previously invisible barrier like water soaking into sand. The command deck fell silent. "Impossible," Maris whispered. "That was a Class 4 plasma cannon. No defensive shield should be able to absorb that energy without at least some kinetic displacement." Before anyone could respond, their sensor arrays erupted with warnings. The Thunderchild was changing. Sections of its hull that had appeared smooth and uninterrupted were shifting, revealing previously hidden structures. Weapon ports that hadn't been visible in any scan were opening along its flanks. Most alarming of all, the power signature that had seemed so modest now blazed across all electromagnetic frequencies. The communication screen activated without a Cyrexian request. Captain Rice appeared again, her expression now cold and professional. "Admiral Krell, we came in peace and with honest intentions," she stated, her voice carrying the weight of authority far beyond what Krell had initially assigned to her. "However, we cannot and will not allow aggressive actions against our vessel." "There has been a misunderstanding," Krell replied quickly, his mind racing to make sense of this dramatic shift. "The weapons discharge was unauthorized. We have no hostile intent. Our sensors indicate your boarding parties are arming with heavy weaponry." "Admiral," Rise interrupted. "Furthermore, we detect targeting locks from multiple vessels in your fleet. These are not the actions of a civilization interested in peaceful contact." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Krell felt genuine uncertainty. The human ship had hidden capabilities that his most sophisticated sensors had failed to detect. How was that possible? What else might they be concealing? "We will withdraw our boarding parties," he conceded, signaling frantically to his officers to stand down. But you must understand our caution when encountering unknown vessels in our territory. Captain Reyes nodded once. Understood. However, I should inform you that our response protocols have already been activated. Several additional human vessels are now en route to this location. More ships. Krell's mandibles clicked in alarm. How many? That depends entirely on how our conversation proceeds from this point forward. Admiral, Reyes replied, the implication clear in her tone. The tactical display behind Krell lit up with new alerts. Long-range sensors were detecting spatial distortions forming at multiple points around the sector boundary. Whatever was coming, it was using technology far beyond simple fusion drives. Admiral, Maraz's voice was barely above a whisper as he stared at his readings. The human chip's energy signature, it's beyond anything in our classification system. And those spatial distortions, they're not using conventional fold space methods. This is technology we've never encountered. As Krell stared at the main display, watching Captain Reyes's calm, confident expression, a chilling realization settled over him. They hadn't stumbled upon a primitive emerging species trespassing in their territory. They had awakened something far more dangerous, the awakening giant. Admiral Krell's command deck had descended into controlled chaos. Officers rushed between stations, analyzing the flood of contradictory data pouring in from their sensors. The human vessel Thunderchild had transformed before their eyes from an apparently modest exploration craft into something that defied their understanding of physics and engineering. Full spectrum analysis, Krell ordered, struggling to maintain his composure. I want to know exactly what we're facing. Chief Science Officer Maraz had called in his entire team, their scaled fingers flying over holographic interfaces as they attempted to make sense of the readings. Admiral, the human vessel's hull is composed of materials we can't identify, Maraz reported. It appears to be a composite nanolattice with properties that shift in response to external stimuli. Their shield technology doesn't just block energy, it absorbs and redirects it. On the main display, the Thunderchild hung in space, its previously hidden weapon systems now fully revealed. Sleek turrets had emerged from recessed compartments, and a series of ports along its spine glowed with barely contained energy. What about their weapons capabilities? Krell demanded. Sub-Commander Zavex studied his tactical readouts with growing alarm. Unknown, Admiral. Our systems can't classify them. The energy signatures don't match any known weapons technology in our database, but based on power output alone. His voice trailed off. Based on power output alone. What? Krell pressed. Zyvex looked up, his expression grim. They could likely destroy the Imperator with a single concentrated volley. A heavy silence fell over the command deck. The Imperator was the most powerful warship in the Syraxian fleet, equipped with defenses that could withstand sustained bombardment from an entire battle group. The idea that a single vessel could threaten it was unthinkable. The communications officer interrupted the silence. Admiral, incoming transmission from Syraxian High Command. Krell steeled himself. Put it through to my private channel. The holographic face of Grand Marshal Thaxis appeared before him, the ancient Syraxian's features set in a permanent scowl of disapproval. Explain this situation immediately, Admiral, Thaxis demanded without preamble. Our long-range sensors detected unusual energy signatures in your sector. Reports indicate you've encountered an unclassified species. Yes, Grand Marshal. They call themselves humans. Initial scans suggested a pre-FTL civilization, but they've revealed capabilities far beyond our intelligence assessments. Thaxis leaned forward. Are you telling me your vaunted dreadnought is being challenged by a single alien vessel? Krell suppressed a surge of indignation. The situation is complex, Grand Marshal. Their technology appears to operate on principles we don't fully understand, and they claim additional vessels are en route. Your duty is clear, Admiral, Thaxis stated coldly. The Syraxian Empire does not tolerate threats. You will neutralize this vessel and capture its technology for analysis. Reinforcements are already being dispatched to your position. Before Krell could respond, the transmission cut off. He stood motionless, contemplating the orders he just received. In his 3 decades of military service, he had never questioned High Command's directives. But he had also never faced an adversary whose capabilities were so thoroughly unknown. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out, "the spatial distortions are intensifying. Multiple signatures detected approaching our position." On the tactical display, a dozen points of light had appeared at the edge of their sensor range. Whatever method of propulsion the humans were using, it allowed them to traverse vast distances in minutes rather than days. "Open a channel to the Thunderchild," Krell ordered. Captain Reyes appeared on screen, her posture relaxed despite the escalating situation. "Admiral Krell, I was hoping we could continue our discussion. Your reinforcements are approaching rapidly," Krell stated, not bothering to hide the fact they had detected them. "You claim to come in peace, yet you bring a fleet to our doorstep." Reyes smiled slightly. "Not a fleet, Admiral. A diplomatic delegation. After our initial misunderstanding, Protocol 7 was automatically initiated. Our diplomatic corps is eager to establish formal relations with the Syraxian Empire." Krell's eyes narrowed. "You expect me to believe that these vessels approaching with technology we can barely comprehend are here for diplomacy?" "Whether you believe it or not doesn't change the truth," Reyes replied. "Humanity has a long-standing policy of peaceful first contact. We reveal our true capabilities only when necessary for security." Before Krell could respond, Meres approached with a data tablet, his expression troubled. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately." The data showed detailed sensor readings of the approaching human vessels. Unlike the Thunderchild, these ships made no attempt to conceal their capabilities. Their energy signatures were unlike anything in Syraxian records, suggesting power generation systems orders of magnitude beyond Imperial technology. "Captain Reyes," Krell said slowly, returning his attention to the screen, "I find myself in a difficult position. My superiors have ordered me to neutralize your vessel and capture your technology." If Reyes was alarmed by this admission, she didn't show it. "And what do you intend to do, Admiral?" It was a simple question with profound implications. Throughout Syraxian history, military officers who disobeyed direct orders were executed for treason. But Krell was also responsible for the lives of everyone on his ship, and potentially, given what he was seeing in the sensor data, the future of the Empire itself. "I would like to propose an alternative," he said carefully. "A temporary ceasefire while we await the arrival of your diplomatic delegation." Reyes nodded. "A reasonable proposal. We have no desire for conflict." However, Krell continued, "I must insist on certain assurances. Your vessel will maintain its current position. No additional systems are to be activated without prior notification." "Agreed, with reciprocal conditions," Reyes countered smoothly. "Your fleet will stand down from combat readiness and recall all fighters to their hangars." Krell hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Acceptable terms." As the communication ended, his executive officer approached cautiously. "Admiral, High Command's orders were explicit. If they discover you've negotiated instead of attacking, then they will need to find someone else to commit suicide." Krell interrupted sharply. "Did you see those sensor readings? We are dealing with a slightly advanced civilization. Commander, we're facing technology that makes our most sophisticated systems look primitive by comparison." The command deck fell silent as the implications sank in. For centuries, the Syraxian Empire had expanded unchallenged, subjugating or destroying any species that resisted. Their technological superiority had been the foundation of their dominance. Now that foundation was crumbling before their eyes. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out, his voice tight with tension. "The human vessels will arrive in approximately 10 minutes. And there's something else." "What now?" Krell demanded. "We're detecting unusual radiation from the Thunderchild. It appears to be scanning us, but not like any scan we've encountered before." It's passing through our shields as if they weren't there, mapping our entire ship down to the molecular level. Mares rushed to confirm the readings, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his alarm. Extraordinary. They're using some form of quantum entanglement to observe our ship's structure without traditional sensor beams. It's completely passive. We can't block it or even detect it without specialized equipment. Are they searching for weaknesses? Krell asked grimly. I don't believe so, Admiral, Mares replied, studying the pattern. The scan is systematic, but doesn't focus on critical systems. It's more like they're creating a complete record of our technological development. They're studying us, Krell realized, like scientists observing a newly discovered species. The implication was both humbling and terrifying. If the humans possessed technology so advanced that they regarded the mighty Syraxian Empire as worthy of scientific observation rather than military respect, what did that mean for the future? As if in answer to his unspoken question, the tactical display erupted with new alerts. The approaching human vessels had dropped out of whatever method of propulsion they had been using, appearing suddenly at the edge of the Syraxian formation. There were 12 ships in total, each unique in design but sharing the same sleek aesthetic as the Thunderchild. Most imposing was the vessel at the center of their formation, a massive ship that dwarfed even the Imperator. Its hull gleamed with an iridescent material that seemed to shift colors as it moved, and no visible weapons marred its elegant lines. Yet Krell's instincts told him this was the most dangerous ship he had ever encountered. Admiral, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from the large human vessel. They identify themselves as the diplomatic envoy Horizon. Krell straightened his posture and adjusted his uniform. History was unfolding before him, and he suddenly understood that his next decisions would determine not just his fate, but potentially the fate of his entire species. Put them through, he ordered, prepared to face whatever came next. Paradigm shift. The holographic display on the Imperator's command deck materialized into the image of a human male, elderly by the appearance of his silver hair and lined face. He wore a simple dark uniform adorned with subtle insignia that Krell couldn't interpret. Behind him stood a diverse group of humans, their varied appearance suggesting genetic diversity far exceeding that of the homogeneous Syraxian species. Admiral Vex Krell. The human greeted him with a respectful inclination of his head. I am Ambassador Elijah Chen of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. Thank you for agreeing to this discussion rather than pursuing more violent alternatives. The ambassador's calm demeanor carried an authority that Krell immediately recognized, not the blustering dominance of Syraxian leaders, but the quiet confidence of someone who had no need to prove their power. Ambassador Chen, Krell replied formally. The Syraxian Empire acknowledges your delegation, though I must note that your arrival in such force could be interpreted as an act of aggression. Chen smiled slightly. Just as your fleet's presence could be interpreted by us. Admiral, perspective is everything in first contact situations. Before Krell could respond, his communication system chimed with an incoming transmission from Syraxian High Command. He hesitated, then made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. Ambassador, please excuse me for a moment while I address my superiors. When Chen nodded graciously, Krell moved to a private communication station. Grand Marshal Thax's face appeared, his expression thunderous. Admiral Krell, our sensors indicate the human vessels have arrived, yet you have not engaged. Explain this insubordination immediately. Krell met the Grand Marshal's gaze steadily. With respect, Grand Marshal, initiating hostilities would be disastrous. These humans possess technology far beyond our capabilities. I am currently in diplomatic discussions with their ambassador. Diplomacy. Thaxis spat the word as if it were poison. The Syraxian Empire does not negotiate from a position of weakness. You will attack immediately or face execution for treason. For a moment, Krell felt the weight of 5 centuries of Syraxian military tradition pressing down on him. Then he thought of the sensor readings, the impossible technology, and what it would mean for his crew if he followed these orders. "I cannot comply, Grand Marshal. I am sending you our sensor data on the human vessels. Review it before you commit our empire to a war we cannot win." Without waiting for a response, Krell terminated the connection and returned to the main communication display where Ambassador Chen waited patiently. "My apologies for the interruption, Ambassador. Political considerations sometimes require immediate attention." Chen nodded knowingly. "I understand completely, Admiral. Leadership often means balancing multiple responsibilities and perspectives." Krell gestured to his science officer. "Our analysts have been studying your vessels since your arrival. Your technology appears to operate on principles unknown to us." "Yes," Chen acknowledged without pride or condescension. "Humanity took a somewhat unconventional path in our technological development. While many species focus on incremental improvements to existing technologies, Earth experienced what we call the quantum revolution approximately 70 years ago." 70 years. Maris interrupted, then quickly apologized for the breach of protocol. "Forgive me, but you're claiming your species advanced from pre-FTL technology to this in a single lifetime." Ambassador Chen smiled. "Science Officer Maris," Krell supplied. "Science Officer Maris, human history is filled with periods of explosive technological growth followed by consolidation. The quantum revolution was simply the most significant of these accelerations, where our understanding of reality itself underwent a fundamental shift." As Chen spoke, data began flowing to the Syraxian science consoles, information freely given about human technological development, though Krell noted carefully that it contained no actionable military intelligence or engineering specifications. "This is a gesture of good faith," Chen explained. "Enough information to help you understand who we are, without compromising security on either side." Maris was already absorbed in the data, his eyes wide with scientific excitement. "Admiral, this is extraordinary. Their approach to physics is fundamentally different from ours. They don't just manipulate energy, they restructure the underlying fabric of space-time itself. And you're simply giving us this knowledge?" Krell asked suspiciously. "Knowledge is not the same as application, Admiral," Chen replied. "Understanding the principles behind our technology would still leave you centuries away from reproducing it. We're not concerned about sharing theoretical frameworks." Something in Chen's phrasing caught Krell's attention. "You speak as if you've done this before. How many other species have you encountered?" A subtle change came over Chen's expression, something Krell couldn't quite interpret but recognized as significant. "Humanity has been observing galactic civilizations for longer than you might expect, Admiral. We've maintained a policy of non-interference while we assessed the maturity and stability of various spacefaring species." The implication struck Krell like a physical blow. "You've been watching us. For how long?" "The Syraxian Empire has been under observation for approximately 120 years, Chen admitted. "Your expansion through the Tharsis sector brought you to our attention." The command deck erupted in murmurs. The idea that humans had been studying them for over a century without detection challenged the very foundation of Syraxian security doctrine. "Why reveal yourselves now?" Krell demanded, struggling to process this revelation. "Two reasons," Chen replied. "First, your empire's expansion trajectory would soon have brought you into direct conflict with other species under our observation. Second, recent advances in your sensor technology were approaching the threshold where you might have detected our observation platforms." Before Krell could respond, the tactical officer interrupted urgently. "Admiral, multiple Syraxian warships have just emerged from Fold Space. It's the 7th Battle Fleet." On the tactical display, 20 Syraxian dreadnoughts appeared at the edge of the system, their weapon systems powering up. Grand Marshal Thaxis had ignored Krell's warning and sent reinforcements with orders to attack. "Ambassador," Krell began, genuine regret in his voice, "I must warn you that those ships are not under my command. They will likely initiate hostilities regardless of our discussion." Chen appeared remarkably unconcerned. "We anticipated this possibility, Admiral." please observe." As the Syraxian battle fleet accelerated toward their position, something extraordinary happened. The space between the approaching warships and the human vessels changed. There was no visible barrier, no energy field, nothing that their sensors could detect. Yet the Syraxian ships suddenly slowed to a complete stop, as if frozen in space. "What have you done?" Krell whispered. "A localized chronometric suspension field." Chen explained casually, as if discussing the weather. "Time within that envelope is passing at approximately 1/10,000th the normal rate. From their perspective, they've barely begun their approach. This gives us several hours to conclude our discussion without interruption." The command deck fell silent. The ability to manipulate time itself was beyond anything in Syraxian science, even theoretical research. "Admiral," Maris said quietly, "if they can do this, the implications are that we face a species so far beyond our technological level that conflict would be suicidal." Krell finished for him. He turned back to Chen. "What are your intentions toward the Syraxian Empire, Ambassador? Conquest? Subjugation?" Chen looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Neither, Admiral. Humanity has no interest in empire building or domination. We've watched species destroy themselves through such ambitions too many times." "Then what do you want?" "Balance," Chen said simply. "Stability. Peaceful coexistence among spacefaring civilizations. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us, but only if aggression and expansionism are kept in check." Krell considered this, "And if we refuse these terms, if the Syraxian Empire continues its current path, then we would be forced to intervene more directly," Chen replied, his tone regretful but firm. "Not through war. We abandoned that approach long ago. But through selective technology restrictions and the protection of vulnerable species." As Krell absorbed this, he realized he was witnessing the end of an era. For centuries, the Syraxian Empire had expanded unchallenged, their military might crushing all opposition. Now, in a single encounter, that dominance had been revealed as an illusion. "I believe," Krell said carefully, "that the Empire's leadership would benefit from a direct demonstration of these realities. Would you be willing to meet with our Emperor?" Chen smiled. "That's precisely why we came, Admiral. Captain Rice's encounter with your fleet simply accelerated our timetable." The tactical display flickered, showing the massive human diplomatic vessel moving into a position parallel to the Imperator. "With your permission," Chen continued, "we would like to dock with your vessel. Our diplomatic team is prepared to accompany you to your homeworld to initiate formal relations with your government." Krell knew that this moment would be recorded in Syraxian history forever, the day their understanding of their place in the galaxy fundamentally changed. He had been prepared to die in battle today. Instead, he found himself tasked with shepherding his civilization into a new era. "Permission granted, Ambassador," he said, making his decision. "Welcome aboard the Imperator." As preparations began for receiving the human delegation, Krell moved to a viewport and gazed out at the suspended Syraxian battle fleet. Mighty warships rendered impotent not by force of arms, but by technology so advanced it might as well be magic. Science Officer Maris joined him, his eyes still wide with the implications of what they had witnessed. "The Empire will never be the same," he said quietly. "No," Krell agreed, "but perhaps that's not entirely a bad thing. We've conquered world after world, species after species, believing it was our destiny. Now we find ourselves like primitive tribes, discovering that beyond their shores lies a vast civilization they never imagined." "What happens now?" Maris asked. Krell watched as the sleek human shuttle departed from the horizon, carrying Ambassador Chen and his team to the Imperator. "Now," he said thoughtfully, "we learn, we adapt, we evolve, or we perish clinging to what we thought we knew." Across the galaxy, in countless observation posts hidden from conventional detection, human monitors noted the successful first contact with the Syraxian Empire. It was a delicate moment, always was with warlike species, but humanity had centuries of experience guiding civilizations toward peaceful coexistence rather than mutual destruction. The grand experiment continued, and another piece was added to the complex tapestry of galactic civilization under humanity's watchful, patient eye. The humans had revealed themselves at last, and the galaxy would never be the same again.